I will be reading the Bow section of Cinder's 1,000-page Google Doc. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is because I've seen too many content creators read or look at Cinder's 1,000-page Google Doc and dismiss it, or if they read it, they just cherry pick certain parts of it and repeat the narrative that was pushed back in April. Which, by the way, Cinder's 1,000-page Google Doc does a good job at refuting the claims put against her in April. And I think it's only fair as fans of Cinder to take a moment to sit down and read the 1,000-page Google Doc. So there's that. Now, of course, Cinder's back. It's great to see she's back. She's made a comeback. She's doing just fine. At this point, it's self-serving, so I'm just covering it. The plan is, once I cover the Cinder Google Doc, I will drop it and leave that in the past. I just thought I'd read this so that way people will have a pseudo audiobook of someone reading this to them, as well as being able to see it, because Lord knows how many people looked at this and was like, ooh, I will ignore it. Like, ah, man. But anyway, with that being said, the progress I have made on this is as what I think is 70% done. Once again, when I finish, I'm gonna drop this and do other things that I want to do. Now, if you want to support Cinder, there will be a link to her card in the description below, and don't forget to use Cinder, code Cinder, at checkout on gamersubs.com to get 10% off your order, as far as I know. Anyway, Cinder's card has links to her YouTube, Twitch, socials. There's merch store somewhere in there. Feel free to have at it. But with that being said, let's begin. Now, for the purpose of this video, I am not going to be reading the screenshots unless I deem it necessary. If you do want to see me read the screenshots, check out the VODs of me reading Cinder's 1,000-page Google Doc in my playlist Cinder Situation Analysis. Feel free to check it out if you want to. So, let's begin. Bow. Posted on April 26, 2025 at 1:48 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bao has always been a great friend to me, and I couldn't own up to being a terrible friend to her when I wrote my apology. I've neglected Bao the same as a lot of other friends of mine, but more than the others in my closest circle. There was so much I couldn't explain in my apology about what happened between Red and I over Bao that's all presented below. Because of Red's resentment towards her after he thought she went out of her way to sabotage us at the end of last year, she became a sore topic between us. My partner's opinion of my friend pressured me to treat her differently to avoid any conflict between us. I never tried to talk to Bao about it because I didn't agree with Red to begin with, and I didn't want to start any drama between us. I was ignorant to the way she felt isolated from me and our other friends earlier this year. She was hurting, and I didn't do anything about it. I'm sorry to her for never addressing the problem when I could have, and I'm sorry I made her feel unwanted. I knew Bao had a model planned with Nano. She showed it to me at Weebcon in March of last year. I also knew that the model was cancelled in August before she told me and our friends. I was told that Nano chose to cancel Bao's model so she could focus on her own content. I had no reason to ask to read Red's messages myself when this happened. When Bao messaged me and our friends, I felt bad that I already knew about it. I saw how excited she was about this model, but I didn't do anything to try and help her. I was under the impression this is what Nano wanted, and I've always been on Nano's side about what she chose to work on. As far as I was aware, Bao didn't have any plans with Nano for a model again after that. I didn't know it was ever replanned or that Red brought Bao up to Nano in their exclusivity deal in January. I did not and do not agree with what he said about Bao to her then. Bao was recovering from surgery when she was told one of her closest friends betrayed her. I didn't know what she was shown or told by Nano and Shy Lily or our other friends involved when she made her decision to make everything public. But I believe she was misinformed. I wish she would have talked to me first, but I don't hold that against her. I never talked to her when I knew Red had a problem with her, and I was neglecting her, so I didn't deserve that courtesy back. Bao was encouraged to reveal my relationship with Red in her document, but she didn't. I appreciate her choosing not to say anything about it before I did. Bao was one of the first people who genuinely inspired me to become a VTuber in 2020. I was lucky enough to become her friend and get to know her. She works extremely hard in everything she does, especially her music. With how much bullshit she's been through, she is one of the strongest people I've ever met. Bao is the kind of person who will always have her friends' backs. I'm sorry that I didn't do the same for her and for never being the friend she deserved me to be. Red, I'm sorry to Bao. I completely misjudged her character, jumped to conclusions, and made a mistake that not only hurt her with Nano, but continued to hurt her because of my influence on Cinder's actions towards her for months afterwards. I'm ashamed of the way I felt about someone who's only been a supportive friend to us. I was too immature to look past my personal resentment towards her to talk to her about the things that made me feel that way in the first place. I went out of my way to get even with someone and take an opportunity away from them who had only hurt us in my own headcanon. I also want to apologize to Bao for reassuring Nano it was okay to cancel her model last August. I was only considering Nano's feelings and now it would affect us and not Bao. I'm sorry. Below we've laid out anything Red or I have experienced with or related to Bao that are relevant to everything that's happened. This includes conversations with our mutual video editor, Red's conversations with Nano about Bao's model, our real-life experiences in the production of Boss Rush's music video with Sacramore, leading up to what Red told Nano in their exclusivity deal. Everything is in chronological order, and all dates and times are in Eastern Standard Time. I've censored any private information or names of people who aren't directly involved. Screenshots that include messages that were in any of the documents are highlighted with a red border. Screenshots that are directly of or taken from another document are highlighted with an orange border. Dates and important messages within any screenshots are highlighted in yellow. Quotes from my apology are highlighted in gray. Red's own comments on anything being presented are labeled and highlighted in blue. September 30th, 2023. Video Editor Exclusivity Number 1. The first time Red asked our video editor about working with us exclusively was a couple weeks after we saw they had worked with Bao. Initially, I took them working with Bao personally when I shouldn't have. I thought it must have been because my content wasn't good enough or as good as Bao's in this case. I thought it could be that I wasn't paying them enough, so they were looking for other work. I was upset, but not at her. She was my friend. Red wanted them to have the time to do more for us in general, so he wanted to ask them about becoming exclusive for that reason. Red also asked how much they'd be looking to be paid for exclusivity. They turned him down, and it wasn't a problem. We were both satisfied with their response and accepted their decision. I got over my insecurity and was happy they were supporting my friend with their content. It was only ever over our shared video editor that I ever saw Bao as any kind of competition, but it didn't affect how I treated her. In my apology, I said, yes, Red and I were initially upset when Bao hired my editor, and I took it personally when I shouldn't have. I felt as if maybe my content wasn't good enough, or like I wasn't paying enough for his work. But I accepted it and was happy for him for getting that bag and supporting one of my friends at the same time. November 17th, 2023. Finding out about Bao's model. Red asked Nano about her current projects like he often would. Red, my oof reaction in this screenshot was due to the number of projects she had on her to-do list, not about who was on it. This was the first time I had seen Nano would be working with Bao on a model. Red, I was asking questions about Bao's design here to find out if it would be compatible with Boss Rush's theme, like a lore outfit. Boss Rush was only an idea between me and Sinder at the time, but we knew what the concept would eventually be, just not who would be included. Later in their conversation, Bao was mentioned again. Red, after Nano said she was rethinking her waitlist, I said I won't stop her if she wanted to make more time for us. She responded saying she was thinking about getting rid of the later ones. I thought Nano should keep Bao on her list because she was Cinder's friend, but I didn't want to take a solid stance on it if Nano was thinking about removing her herself. Nano said here she really wanted to work with Bao. Red, Nano told me Bao's model was planned for June. September 19th, 2023. Nano asked Red about Bao's model timeline. Red, Nano asked me when she should have Bao's model done. Nowhere do I say she should cancel it. Nano suggested she may get it done sooner than June. March 29th, 2024 to March 31st, 2024. Weebcon 2024. At Weebcon is where Bao showed us her new model design Nano was working on for her. July 15th, 2024 to July 19th, 2024. The She-Wolf cover song. Bao messaged Red about doing a cover of She-Wolf with me for her Halloween cover album. This was the first and only time she went to Red in their DMs to plan something with me. She first told Red this song would be a duet. She messaged Red again later, now telling him that Numi was involved. Red asked me about this, and he told Bao that I said I was down to do it. I also said she could have just messaged me about this, and I don't know why she didn't. Red asked her to clarify if it would be just the two of us like she said, or three of us now, but Bao never responded. 3 days later, Bao messaged me to add me into her project server for the song. This was the first thing she said to me about it. Red never told me Bao said anything about Numi's inclusion in the 3 days since, and only told me it'd be a duet when talking to me about it. Numi being included wasn't a problem at all, and the three of us did the cover together. July 23, 2024 to August 6, 2024, Bao's model cancellation. These are Red's DMs with Nano leading up to when she cancelled Bao's model. July 23rd, 2024 to July 26th, 2024, Red asked Nano if she knew when Bao's model was going to debut so we could plan our schedule around it. Like we've done in the past with other people she's worked with, it was the end of July and he thought her model was already finished. The last time Nano had mentioned it to him was in November, and she told him she planned to have it done in June. We saw the design at Weebcon in March when Bao showed us. Red. Cinder's angel model was booked for October. I was also excited for what I thought was a model she was making for someone else. Red. Nano told me she didn't want to take anyone from her public commission form so she can do more streaming herself, saying she wanted to move on with her own brand and work with Cinder until we chose not to anymore. I encouraged her and offered her my help. Red. Nano brings up the idea of canceling models first after expressing she wanted to do her own thing and that she honestly would if she didn't feel committed to them. Red. I asked about Bao being one of the finished models that hadn't debuted yet because I was under the impression Bao was already done. Nano told me her model wasn't even started. Me saying to her that we'll find a new mama for being busy was a joke, like earlier in the conversation when I joked about firing her. Red. Out of nowhere, Nano asked me, do you think Bao would kill me if I cancel with her? She was already considering canceling it on her own. This was a huge difference from how she felt about Bao's model last November. I told Nano I thought she should do what was best for her, that less model work meant she could do what she wanted to sooner, and we'd help her with streaming. From my own experience with Bao, I thought she could be whiny and pushy when things didn't go her way, so I thought she'd complain and guilt-trip Nano. I was being honest with my friend about another friend. I never asked her to cancel Bao's model or any other model. Nano told me she was already thinking about it, plus canceling another VTuber's model, so this wasn't just about Bao. Nano could have said anyone's model, and I still would have said the same thing if that's what she thought was best for her, and her doing so agreed with how I thought about more Nano models. She told me Bao's model hadn't even been started either, and I assumed all that was done must have been the design. I was closer to Nano than I was to Bao, so I was for supporting Nano with what she wanted to do over telling her to keep any project she was already considering canceling. None of this context was shown in Nano's or Bao's documents. August 4th, 2024 to August 5th, 2024. Red asked Nano if she decided to cancel any model projects like they had talked about before. He did not name anyone. Red. The reason why I followed up and asked Nano if she had cancelled anything was because it could possibly affect our project schedule with her. Nano said she didn't cancel anything yet. She did not tell me she decided not to cancel anything at all. Then she told me to give her a moment about it. She told me previously there were at least 2 models she was considering canceling. There were unrelated messages about my own project that they were talking about between these screenshots. Red. I bumped Nano again about 6 hours later, and she said someone was replying to her now. Red. Another 20 minutes later is when I say to Nano, did you cancel models? It was in all caps because of the previous messages sent and the fact I still hadn't heard anything from her about it. She said she didn't, and I said her arc of doing what she wanted to do would be delayed far into the future, joking with her like I always had. Red. Nano brought up Bao again, saying she's scared to cancel with her. She didn't say she chose not to cancel any of her projects or that she didn't want to cancel with Bao anymore, only that she was scared to do it, which explained why she hadn't canceled anything yet. I was not the one to bring up Bao again, and I didn't specify anyone we had previously talked about. I reassured Nano about it and told her I thought she should be at least somewhat paid for the design she made and the work she put into it. My thought that Bao could possibly start shit over this was the same as I said before, where I thought she'd complain or guilt-trip Nano over it. Nano agreed with me, then said she regretted opening her other model applications in the first place. All of the lead-up to this conversation was left out of Nano's and Bao's documents. Red. 45 minutes after, Nano said she was able to start on Cinder's Angel model right away, when earlier she said she wasn't able to and had planned to start in October. This was all Red told me in our DMs right after he talked to Nano. Later that night, Red told me Nano was going to cancel Bao's model because she wanted to stream more and focus on her own VTubing career. He said we would help her out and that Nano was able to start on my Heaven Hound model early now. I felt bad for Bao because I saw how excited she was about the design she showed us in person, but I was under the impression that this was what Nano wanted. She was my friend too, and I wasn't going to pressure her to do something she didn't want to do. I didn't see Red's messages and only knew what he told me. Red. If I really wanted Nano to cancel Bao's model for some malicious reason, and knew I could make her do it through some kind of manipulation, why would I have waited 8 months after I first found out about it in November of 2023 and told Nano she shouldn't? Why did I wait 4 months after Weebcon in March 2024 when Bao showed it to us? Why, when I thought Bao's model was already finished in June like she told me it was planned for, would I have gone out of my way to make Nano cancel it now? Although I was closer with Nano, Bao was still a friend, and I didn't have any problems with her back then. My opinion of how she could respond to Nano canceling on her doesn't change that. Nano has worked with multiple friends of ours in the past, and it wasn't a problem, including Bao in this situation. I was supporting what Nano expressed to me she wanted to do for herself, and as her friend I reassured her it would be okay. This wasn't for Nano to have more time for us. Instead of anything she had planned, the only projects we had upcoming with Nano at this time was Cinder's Angel model and starting screen art, which we were content with being started in October like Nano told me before. It was only after all of this that Nano told me she could start it earlier, which affected our project timeline. That's why I asked if she decided to cancel anything, but I didn't expect her to move our project up. August 6, 2024. Red messaged Nano and asked how her conversation with Bao went. Red. Nano said she was scared to talk to Bao, so being her friend I asked how it went. If Bao's design was done and the model wasn't even started, like Nano told me it wasn't, then I didn't think it was a problem if Bao could just take the design to another model artist. Hypothetically, I thought there still would have been time to hit her planned Valentine's debut window Nano told me about. Red. The whole situation was wrong of both of us. Nano shouldn't have asked me about what she wanted to do with her other commissions, and I shouldn't have weighed in on what I thought. I'm sorry to Bao for my actions and that this happened at all. It was after this when Bao messaged our group chat with our friends saying that Nano dropped her as a client. I felt guilty knowing about this before Bao had told us. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. I was the one who was known to always work with Nano, but if this was her decision, I didn't want to get involved. I should have been a better friend to Bao and at least tried doing something for her, but I didn't. After I posted my apology on April 27, 2025, Bao tweeted this, talking about her model being cancelled last August. It was a standalone tweet, not as a reply to my apology, and not quoting it either. I was aware that in this instance, Bao's model was cancelled, and before she said anything. I haven't claimed otherwise anywhere, and I didn't say anything about it in my apology. I was not aware of Red giving Bao's name to Nano in his exclusivity negotiations in January 2025. This is what I said. Regarding the exclusivity deal made between them, I had no part in the direct negotiations of their eventual agreement, and I had no knowledge of Bao and Cotton being included in this list. If I had known my friends were included, I would have said something to put a stop to it. After Bao posted, I messaged the one friend that could get a message to her since she had already unfriended me and I had no way to contact her. Red and I had a falling out the night the documents dropped, and we didn't live together anymore either, so I had no way to access his DMs myself to go back and see everything he was saying and doing to make sure it was right. All I had to go off of was what Red told me in August about this, and what was posted in Nano and Bao's documents, and now Bao's tweet after my apology. I don't know if she ever got this message, and she never reached out to talk. I told this friend that I didn't know the model was cancelled because of Red's conversation with Nano, and not that I didn't know it was cancelled at all. This is the same friend I messaged before about Red and I. In Bao's tweet, she said that before her model was cancelled in August of 2024, they were so close to begin Live 2D and rigging. And in Nano's document, it said that Red asked me to cancel on one of their closest friends, Bao, by asking me to cancel my work mid-progress, followed by saying Red contacted me specifically to check on me canceling the model I had planned with Bao, neither of which were actually shown or true. A little over a week before Bao's model was cancelled, Nano told Red that Bao's model hadn't even been started, and as you've seen, Red never asked Nano to cancel Bao's model. How could it have been cancelled mid-progress and close to being rigged if it wasn't started, and if it was so close to rigging, why would Nano have even considered cancelling it instead of just finishing it? I think Bao would have said if her model was cancelled mid-progress in her messages to me and our friends if it was, instead of just that she was dropped as a client. In Bao's document, she said, there was suddenly back and forth on whether or not Nano had the physical and mental capacity to continue her model. which lines up with what Nano said to Red and how Nano repeatedly overbooked herself but was never shown anywhere. Bao saying there was a back and forth also could imply that Nano already approached her saying she may not continue her model before August 5th when Red messaged Nano. Also, Red didn't contact Nano to specifically check on Nano canceling Bao's model like was claimed. He messaged her to see if she decided to cancel any other projects she expressed interest in canceling that Nano previously mentioned. August 9th, 2024, Video Editor Exclusivity number 2. The second time Red asked our video editor about becoming exclusive was after our other editor had stepped down from working with us on August 5th. Instead of finding a replacement, we wanted to see if they could have the time to fill the gap in content left behind, plus any extra videos they'd be available to make for us. Red offered them a raise, but they turned him down and we moved on. This had nothing to do with Bao. August 27th, 2024. Last solo collab with Bao. This was the day of my last one-on-one collab with Bao. She had asked me to make clay animals together on August 3rd, 2024, and it took us 3 weeks to get the materials delivered and finally schedule it. We ended up making VTuber mascots. I was happy Bao wanted to do something artsy together since I already did my own crafting streams and I wasn't able to do hand cam crafting collabs with other VTubers very often. Around August 31st, 2024, Natural Disaster. Bao released her original song, Natural Disaster, featuring our other friends alongside her. Red. This event is here because of what I watched Bao say on her stream either on the day the song was released or sometime in the couple weeks before then. She was talking about how difficult, frustrating, and time-consuming it was to work with inexperienced singers on music projects, and that she would rather work with V-singers from now on who know what they're doing and can match her high skill level. These were her closest friends she was talking about, live on stream. I couldn't find an archive VOD of this stream anywhere to prove this happened either. What I remember is how it made me think Bao viewed her friends and how I felt about it. At the same time, Bao, Numi, and I were working on our She-Wolf cover. Red told me this and it made me anxious about the song and I felt like I had a lot of pressure on me to do well. I barely had any singing experience and wasn't anywhere near Bao's level, but she asked me to be a part of this and I wanted to do my best for her. September 19th, 2024 to September 23rd, 2024, Twitchcon 2024. Red, there's 3 things that happened at Twitchcon last year that further formed the opinion I had of Bao. The first night there, Sinder, her friends, and I went out to dinner somewhere nice. Bao was supposed to be there with us but never showed up. It was the first chance the close friends had to see each other in months in person, away from work, and she blew them off. Everyone present was talking about her not being there. One of our friends was telling us that they were working on a song with Bao, and Bao asked about them having a music video to go with it. The song this friend was making with Sinder at the time was planned to have a music video, but they weren't planning on having one for the song with Bao. They said that Bao got upset with them, guilt-tripping them over their decision about their own content. This reinforces what I had told Nano about Bao. The last night before everyone went home, the friends were planning to go to dinner. I ended up getting sick and stayed behind. In the group chat, while they were figuring out where to eat, Bao said that she wanted to go somewhere fancy or she wasn't going. This was the last night everyone was together, but there were still caveats she had to just spend time with her friends. Neither Sinder or I have access to this group chat anymore. At a party at TwitchCon was where we met Sacramore, Bao's video editor. He came to me and said he'd love to work together and make a music video for me, which is why Red would ask him to make one for Boss Rush. Oh. I need to take a break. Oh, I need to drink water. Okay, there we go. September 28th, 2024 to August 4th, 2024. Sacramore and Boss Rush's music video number 1. Since this is the first time Sacramore has been mentioned, here is his document for reference, posted on April 26, 2025 at 2:05 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Red reached out to Sac after TwitchCon about a music video project which was the one for Boss Rush's song. They discussed it over the next week, but Sac couldn't fit it into his schedule at the time. October 5th, 2024 to October 18th, 2024, Japan trip. Red, there's 2 things that happened during our trip to Japan with our friends last year. Bao got mad at another one of our friends for something that happened at a restaurant with a rude owner. She got pissed and yelled at and belittled our friend when they did nothing wrong. They confided in Sinder and I afterwards and were very upset over it, but it was fine because they said that's just how Bao is. Everyone got together for what we called our Canadian Thanksgiving dinner. Since it was a few days earlier, it was the last night all of the friends would be together just like TwitchCon, and again, Bao never showed up. She said she was on her way and then sometime later said, never mind, she's not coming. We all were aware of this was the last time we'd all see each other until 2025. After Twitchcon in Japan, I was pretty convinced about how I thought Bao viewed and valued her friends outside of making content together. I experienced these things in Japan and at TwitchCon too. I was put off by them in the moment, but I didn't think about them beyond when they happened. October 23rd, 2024 to November 30th, 2024. Sacramore and Boss Rush's music video number 2. After getting back from Japan, Red messaged Sack again about Boss Rush's music video since the planned release date was pushed back again. These are all of their DMs over the course of the music video's production. Red, I offered to pay double for Sack's work because I knew it'd be a tight deadline and was desperate for his help. Sack was one of 2 music video editors we knew, and the other wouldn't have been able to pull off this video in this time frame. Sack's music videos always come out great, and this project never needed to be the best it could. Red, I sent Sack the merch assets as soon as they were given to me. Red, for transparency, there were 14 timestamps total, but some were cut off between these 2 screenshots. November 29th, 2024. Bao's comment on Boss Rush's song. My new music group, Boss Rush, premiered our first song at the end of November. Red and I were going through the comments and we both saw Bao's. He didn't want me to like her, so I gave in just to satisfy him. At the end of the day, it was just a comment. Red, after the past few months, I had a pretty solid opinion of how I thought Bao viewed her friends, so I told Sinder she shouldn't like it. I was persistent about it, so she listened to me. It was very petty of me towards a friend showing support. Around December 5th, 2024 to December 9th, 2024, group chat with Bao. Sometime in between these dates, Bao started a group chat with both Red and I. We were both removed from this group, so we don't have access to what was said. As far as we remember, she wanted to do something together. Red was adamant to me about not wanting to plan anything with her at the time, so we didn't. Red, Bao has never messaged us like this before, and this was right after Boss Rush popped off with another 2 friends involved. I wasn't opposed to doing things with her completely, but the timing was suspicious to me after the past few experiences with her, and I saw this as her trying to gain something from us, so I brushed her off. What stood out to me is that she addressed Sinder specifically as the lead singer of Boss Rush. December 10th, 2024, Sacramore Exclusivity. 11 days after the music video was finished and released, Red messaged Sack about another project for February. He said he was working exclusively with Bao going forward. In my apology, I said, and yes, I was also upset when Sack, the Boss Rush MV editor, had told us that he won't be working on any future project with us and would instead be working exclusively for Bao. But Red got it in his head that it was Bao's fault that it happened and seemingly held a grudge against her for it. He was very passionate about Boss Rush and the potential future projects around it, but he told me without an MV editor as talented as Sack, the future projects wouldn't reach the same heights, so he created this headcanon that's laid out in those DMs. Red, the last time I spoke to Sack, he said he was honored to be a part of Boss Rush's project and was looking forward to the next music video together. Everyone loved the video he made, and it was already nearing 500,000 views. I didn't know Sack well at all, so I had no real basis to know how he actually felt, but I just couldn't understand his decision coming out of nowhere. Red, as we were messaging, I was going back and forth talking to Sinder about this, which is why there's gaps in time in my responses to Sack. By the end of our conversation, I was suspicious of his reasoning. Right after this, Red messaged her video editor about music video editors and about what happened with Sack. They're close with and works with Bao and her other editors, including Sack. Red, our video editor gave me the same reasoning for Sack's decision as he did, and I should have taken it as fact by then, but I didn't, and still thought something else must have happened. Red, Sack told me he was going exclusive with Bao because of his own content and goals he wanted to prioritize. In his position as a VTuber video editor for a significant amount of time, I just didn't understand his vague reasoning or what content and community he was talking about. This was just 11 days after Boss Rush premiered. It was this message from Sack that made me suspicious of what his actual reason was for going exclusive with Bao. He only said all this after he was pushed about his decision. And this was only days after Sinder and I turned down Bao in that group chat where she called Sinder the lead singer of Boss Rush. Because of my experience with Bao over the past few months, I had confirmation bias. I convinced myself Sack was doing this because Bao must have guilt-tripped and convinced him not to work with anyone other than her, including Boss Rush. And I was mad that this wasn't even just against Sinder and I, but Tricky and Vienna too, who I cared about as much as Sinder did. Red. Another thing that hasn't been mentioned up to this point is what Bao thought of her own music throughout last year. She would talk publicly in her Discord server about how depressed she was about her own songs, about how nothing she did was performing well, and guilt-tripping her fans about not liking them or listening to them due to the low view counts, ignoring their supportive messages like it meant nothing to her because the numbers didn't reflect them. She wanted to quit making music entirely because she thought her songs performed so poorly. The only songs of hers from last year that I could imagine she considered successful were Miss RGB, Natural Disaster, and the She-Wolf cover, all of which included her friends. When I told Nano about Bao's songs flopped, I was referring to how Bao thought of them, implying that I thought it was motivation for her to do what I was telling Nano. Music that had dozens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of views, wasn't good enough for Bao, although I didn't elaborate on any of that to Nano. In my own opinion, all of her songs performed fine, if not great. I didn't know why she needed views to validate music she made if it was something she enjoyed doing in the first place. I know how this reasoning sounds when you just look at what my message to Nano said, and it doesn't look good on me. We were banned from Bao's Discord server, so I don't have any evidence to show this happening. I don't know if Bao's messages about this still exist, but I know there's plenty of Baoable buddies out there who would remember this. Bao's TMJ she talked about in her document had nothing to do with anything I said to Nano, and wasn't something I even considered. Another similar instance I remember happening in Bao's server was on Cinder's birthday last year when her, Bao, and their friends were playing Jackbox games together. Cinder was streaming and invited them all to play, and Bao was streaming her end at first, but abruptly ended it not long after starting. I checked her Discord server to see if anyone knew what happened. Bao was chatting in a public channel saying her CCV was too low to keep streaming, and no one cared about watching her. Her community was trying to encourage and support her, but I remember she replied to a fan saying something like, "Stop fucking talking," and telling them all that nothing she did mattered. This is how she was talking directly to her fans supporting her, and while in a collab on her friend's birthday of all days, more concerned about her numbers rather than having a good time together. I don't know if these messages still exist either, but about her music wasn't the only time that she berate herself in our server and guilt trip her fans about it. Here is part of the full VOD from September 14th, 2024 for reference. Sniffing a lot, just allergies, I swear. Huh. It's 30 minutes? Oh my god, anyway. Red. One thing I found while putting this document together was a tweet from Bao earlier this year on March 15, 2025 that indirectly supports the above. Bao said she was struggling with an unhealthy work-life balance like us. She wasn't enjoying content creation, implying she was too focused on the numbers, and what she did was never enough for her. Red. She also spoke about her jaw pain in this tweet that she mentioned in her document. This was not something I had ever considered and had nothing to do with my opinion or actions towards her. Red. With everything I had seen, heard, and experienced with and around Bao over the past few months all added up, I had come to this conclusion. Boss Rush's song came out and was performing great right away. Bao, who was upset with her own music performance throughout the year, and who really cared about numbers, saw how well the song her musically inexperienced friends made was doing. She also found out her video editor, Sac, had made the music video for it. These made her upset. She messaged Cinder and I about doing something together the week that followed, calling Cinder the lead singer of Boss Rush, but we turned her down. She was also turned down about doing a music video with another friend recently who was guilt-tripped about it, and now us refusing to make content with her made things worse. She must have spoke to Sac sometime after about how depressed she was over all of this, guilt-tripping him about everything she's done for him into not working with anyone else going forward. When Sac told me why he made his decision to go exclusive, he emphasized how indebted to Bao he was, which would make sense if he was guilt-tripped into this. Sure, there were times before this that I thought Bao could be whiny or pushy, but I never held anything against her before. Now I was convinced she was selfish, only cared about her friends when clout was involved, and had intentionally screwed us over out of jealousy over friends' success. Things that were never a problem to me, like her working with our same video editor for the past year and a half, suddenly became an issue. Everything I saw over these few months showed a pattern of behavior that led to this happening. I thought I was crazy for being the only one to see it, with all her friends always giving her behavior a pass because that's just how Bao is. I couldn't possibly think her editor just decided to go exclusive with Bao right after Boss Rush just because he wanted to, and Bao had no involvement in his choice. It was completely unbelievable to me that someone would just do that themselves with the way this perfect storm of events lined up. If there was a greater explanation or reasoning behind these events and Bao's actions, I never knew about them. I formed my opinion on what I did know and experience like anyone else would. It wasn't founded on jealousy of Bao, and I wasn't just making things up to lie to Nano about her for no reason. But at the same time, I never sought out the truth and never talked to Bao about it. I was mad at her and already decided what she did. I thought that if I bring it up, she'd just lie about it and it wouldn't matter. I had thoroughly brainwashed myself into thinking there was no way this wasn't the case, but as I now know, I was wrong. I misinterpreted the situation and misjudged Bao's intentions due to my confirmation bias, going as far as to disregard every positive interaction I had with Bao or any of the good things I've seen her do just to fit this narrative. I jumped to conclusions and doubled down without ever trying to find out if this was really true or not, but with every little thing that happened, I was so sure that this must have been the case, and I held it against Bao. It was stupid and immature of me, and Bao didn't deserve the way I thought about her or my actions that followed. And Bao did know about the music video Sak was working on for us. I was wrong. While going through my messages for this document, he said as much to me when I first asked him about doing the music video. From the time he said that and then became exclusive, it had been over 2 months. We'd gone to Japan, and I handled conversations with lots of other people every day. I forgot about it and thought Bao was unaware of him working with us. There was no conversation at the Twitchcon party we were at that I can remember Bao being a part of while talking to Sak specifically about working together. She was there talking to us at different points, but not at the same time as that. Red. I want to say I'm sorry to Sak for the pressure I put him under while working on our music video and overworking him during the holidays with what he was experiencing at the time. If I had things better planned and finished sooner, there wouldn't have been such a time crunch. I also want to apologize for the hostility in my messages to him when he told me he was closing his commissions. It was his choice to do so, and I shouldn't have distrusted him. December 12th, 2024. Argument with Red. Red came up with this theory about Bao and brought it to me. This was a verbal conversation, so I have no evidence of it, only of the events around it. I didn't believe Bao would pressure her editor just to hurt us. I was upset about not being able to work with Sak again too, but I told him we just have to find a new editor. When confronted with her actions over the past few times we saw her, I said they weren't a big deal. Red was persistent and went through his evidence over and over until I got mad too. I caved on the YouTube comment and I understood what he was saying to me, but I didn't agree with his conclusion. I was already stressed out because of my new model debut in 3 days, and I was hosting the VTuber Awards pre-show the day before that. That's where my Fansly announcement would also be, and another thing I was nervous about doing at all. Now Red was telling me he knew one of my friends had purposely done this to me. I defiantly told him it wasn't true to get over it. Red told me to ask Bao about it, but I told him to since he was the one with the problem. I had a collab on another friend's channel the next day that included Bao. Red wanted me to cancel it last minute because she was involved after I had already made an announcement about it in my Discord server earlier. I didn't want to hear it, got upset, and just went to bed from the stress of everything. Because of our fight, I was asleep and missed the Okami sequel announcement. I tweeted about it when I woke up. Neither of us ever talked to Bao about any of this, even after just days earlier she had started a group chat with us both. It's my fault for never trying to clear things up when I had the chance. I just wanted this to go away and keep the peace between me and my friends. In my apology, I said, I wasn't convinced this was the case, but it's my fault for never speaking with Bao about these things directly to clear things up, and letting it spiral to the point it got to. I'm sorry for not reaching out sooner about these ideas that were put into my head. I wish we would have been able to talk about this too. Red, regardless of how I personally felt about Bao now, I was still friendly with her the couple times I talked to her afterwards. She was still Cinder's friend. I asked Bao for advice about something work-related in December, and the last time I spoke to her was at the end of the year with her, Sinder, and their friends were dealing with something else going on. Getting even with Bao wasn't something I ever thought about doing until the opportunity came up when going to Nano about exclusivity. December 13th, 2024 to December 14th, 2024, the collab with Bao and friends. I was at my friend's collab the next day with Bao. Bao messaged me afterwards apologizing for something that had happened on stream. I didn't see her message right away because of everything I had going on that weekend. I replied after the VTA pre-show was over. I thought about saying something to Bao about what Red told me, but I didn't. I didn't want to start anything over what I believed to be nothing in the first place, and I had a hard time talking about things in general. I trusted Bao. I was still mad at Red, and my new debut was the next day. December 14th, 2024 to December 15th, 2024. Artist number 1 and Bao. Artist number 1 told Red that they're working with Bao now. Red. Artist number 1 told me they were working with Bao now. This was only a few days after I spoke to Sac, and Sinder and I had an argument over my theory about Bao. The other regular people we work with I was talking about here was Nano from when she was working with Bao earlier in the year. I told artist number one that it wasn't a big deal they were working with her. Artist number one never knew my thoughts on Bao that were told to Nano in January. I was mad at Bao, but I wasn't planning to do anything about it. It was only when I went to ask Nano about exclusivity did I have the idea to include Bao's name as a way to get even with her. December 15, 2024, Sacramore's announcement. Sacramore made his announcement about working exclusively with Bao. This was the same day as my Heaven Hound model debut. Red, as far as I was aware, Sac was already basically exclusive to Bao to the same degree our video editor was to us, if not more so. For him to do a complete 180 in under 2 weeks from Boss Rush's release was unbelievable to me. He put his exclusivity with Bao in writing publicly and asked to be completely anonymous without being credited going forward with no reason other than he wanted to. I just couldn't believe there wasn't more to it. I don't know if Sac ended up making any of his own content like he told me since this happened. Recently, Sac opened his commissions again and is apparently not working with Bao anymore. The very thing that sent me over the edge about Bao last December didn't seem to last. September 20th, 2025. September 24th, 2025. January 10th, 2025 to February 11th, 2025. Artist number one in Nano's exclusivity deal. Like was shown in Nano's section, artist number one wanted to discuss a permanent paid position with us and suggested some kind of exclusivity for the work they did. Just like with Nano, Red handled any business-related discussions with them. This is where the idea to go to Nano about exclusivity came from. January 10th, 2024. Artist number one messaged Red the morning after pitching their idea to him about our video editor, and then said they'd be willing to offer some kind of exclusivity due to competitiveness in the field. In the brief conversation Red and I had about it, we agreed that if we were going to pay them consistently for their work, like my video editor, we'd want to work out some kind of exclusivity with them. The next time Red and I talked about this, he said we should ask Nano for some kind of exclusivity too. Nano had suggested exclusivity to him in September, and talking to artist number one gave him the idea to ask her about it again. Red and I had agreed we should ask Nano to not accept any more brand new model clients and to not make models or outfits for Silvervale anymore. Nano would have more time to work on my projects, and Silver wouldn't be able to get another model from Nano. I wouldn't be compared to her if she chose to get a new one from someone else. Her artwork commissions and projects with her current model clients wouldn't be touched. As for the exclusivity with artist number one, Red and I had only agreed that we wanted to have it for their work and didn't talk about naming anyone to them. January 15th, 2025. This was when Nano and Red made their exclusivity deal. I didn't know Red was planning to talk to her about it that day, or even knew he had until after they had already come to an agreement. Without my involvement, Red brought this up to Nano in their private DMs and not on our private project server chat where all three of us were. This quote from my apology refers to this deal they made. We had come to the conclusion that it'd be in my best interest to talk to Nano about making more time for my projects by negotiating with her to cut out other work. This was wrong for us to push onto her, and it was wrong to the other creators who wanted the chance of working with her. There was only one specific creator we were responsible for naming and pressuring Nano into reconsidering projects with, not an entire list. I should have said negotiating with her to take on less work. We were never thinking about asking her to cut out or cancel anything she already had planned. In Nano's and Bao's documents, this conversation was presented out of order and purposely left out information. Red, this was the second of 4 total times and with three different artists I had ever specifically asked anyone to not work with someone else, which are all presented in this document. In this instance, it was in negotiations for an exclusivity deal. Red, what I told Nano we were looking for was exactly what Sinder and I agreed to, not taking on any brand new model clients and not to make any more models or outfits with Silvervale. Existing model clients and artwork commissions wouldn't be affected. This was so Nano would have more time to focus on our projects, and was the only other time since November 2023 that I had ever mentioned anything about the value of Nano's models, the more there were. I wanted to preserve the value of existing Nano models like Cinder's, and the more models Nano accepted, the more recurring clients she'd have, meaning she'd have less time for any projects we may ask her to for. Models were the most time-consuming thing she did. We never considered including and cutting off any of Nano's existing model clients, since many of them were our friends, besides Silver. Cinder has always been supportive of anyone who's debuted a model by Nano. Red, I chose to include Bao's name to get even with her for what I thought she did to us, and I threw Khan's name in there for hurting a friend and because I knew she was on Nano's waitlist in the past. Neither of them were ever discussed with Cinder, and Cinder strongly disagreed with what I thought about Bao. If I was going to make a deal with Nano, then I wanted to try to include Bao at the very least. Including their names here was entirely on me. I didn't want them to be able to get a model from Nano, but I wasn't looking to have her cancel anything on anyone. I knew Nano didn't have anything lined up with Silver. The last time I heard she had conned down for a model was when she canceled it in 2023, and it was under the impression that Bao moved on to another artist after Nano canceled on her the first time in August, since that was the last time Nano mentioned it. I had no idea Nano even had Bao on her to-do list again, so I said it was fine to leave things as they were when Nano revealed it to me. I did feel bad about the idea of Nano canceling on Bao a second time, even if I didn't want her to work with Nano, and I would have left it there. Nano asked me if I was sure and said she's not down to work with people Sinder didn't want her to. Sinder only agreed to ask Nano about Silvervale and did not agree with me about Bao. Before this, I was using we and our like I would in any conversation with any one of our partners. But if Nano was okay with what she wanted, I made sure to tell her how we both felt. In an overzealous attempt to get even with Bao, I took advantage of that and made it sound like Cinder agreed with my feelings about her when I knew it wasn't true. It was the only time I lied about anything to Nano, and it was wrong of me to do this. Everything I said in this conversation were my own thoughts. My hesitancy and Nano's reassurance were both left out of Nano's and Bao's documents. What Red described to Nano below was his incorrect theory about Bao making her editor Sacramore go exclusive with her because of Boss Rush's music video he made. I knew he thought this way in December, but I never agreed with him and he held it against her. I was completely unaware that any of this was told to Nano. I should have talked to Bao about it, but I never did. Red. My message about Cotton was cut out of the screenshot in Nano's document, but not in Bao's document. I don't know why Nano would do that herself and would later say to me, I don't really care about Bao and Cotton. Nano's messages saying, I'd rather work with Cinder than Bao, don't worry, being Cinder's mom means a lot to me, were removed as well, and this was framed as me showering her with love to manipulate her, instead of it being me responding to what she said like what actually happened. When I told Nano that Bao's songs flopped, I was referring to how Bao thought of them, implying that I thought it was motivation for her to do what I was telling Nano, although I didn't explain that to her. Plus, none of this can leave our chat, and again, this is all secret talk, was to keep this from everyone, including Cinder. The image of the chat from Nano's document with the message about Cotton edited out, the image of the chat from Bao's document containing the message about Cotton. Red. I was mad at Bao for what I thought was her gatekeeping her music video editor, Sacramore, from working with us on any other music videos. The other things I said about Bao were all non-issues that became a list of grievances after what I thought she did. It sounded so harsh because I was angry about it, and I was venting to someone I trusted about something I genuinely believed happened. I thought that if she was going to gatekeep her editor, then I was going to try gatekeeping our artist. I couldn't see what I thought happened making sense any other way. Everything I said here I believed and was true to my own observations and experiences. They were not lies I was making up just because. I now know I was wrong. Nano was the only person I told my feelings and theory about Bao to other than Cinder. Red. Nano said, oh, we can do a deal. I'll cancel my model with Bao, like, forever. And then suggested I pay her for her own model rigging in return below, which she'd discount from her next project payment. Nano made me an offer to cancel Bao's model that'd benefit her, and was okay with doing it for what ultimately zeroed out to nothing. This was not shown in Nano's or Bao's documents. Red. Nano told me we'd have to make a separate deal for new model clients, separate from her proposed idea about Bao's cancellation and her model rigging payment. That deal is what she earlier said she'd want some kind of payment for. Instead of focusing on new model clients, I chose to focus on the people I listed to her and offered the deal above. She said she wanted some kind of payment agreement for new model exclusivity, which would be another deal, but I didn't refuse to pay her for it like was claimed. The original proposition was only over models, but since I pivoted and new model clients were off the table and we were just talking about these three, I suggested that it include all work. I told her she wouldn't have to pay us the few thousand for her rigging back from her offer, and I'd guarantee her as many projects as she wanted. She worked with Silver occasionally, never with Cotton, and only with Bao on her model, so she wouldn't be missing out on income we wouldn't be ready to replace. Red. Nano. It do be fair, but okay, can I ask for Demon Cinder figure? Yay, deal. Red. Nano and I went back and forth and negotiated a deal, then we both agreed to it. It was a deal made on each other's word, and there was no contract involved. She had equal say in what she'd want or need out of our deal before agreeing to it. She was fully aware of what she was agreeing to and was completely capable of turning me down if she had chosen to, and I would have accepted that like always. But if I knew all along I could just manipulate Nano to do whatever I wanted, like I had allegedly done before, including canceling models, why didn't I just do that instead of making any kind of deal with her in the first place? This was a mutual agreement made between both of us. She made the offer to cancel Bao's model, we negotiated, and both of us agreed to the deal we made. But the end of this conversation and the final terms of our deal were never shown in Nano's document. There was no manipulation, and I didn't lie to her about what I actually believed at the time. I did and always have cared about our friends. I was under the impression that what Bao did was against me, Sinder, Tricky, and Vienna, and Cotton, or another one of our friends I cared about. I made this mistake in trying to do what I thought was right by them at the time without considering the people it would affect. After this happened, I was told Nano agreed she wouldn't work with Silverveil at all anymore. We'd continue working with Nano on lots of projects that we've always done, we'd fully pay for Nano's new models rigging, and she'd be sent a free demon figure. Red never told me that Bao and Cotton were ever talked about or included in their agreement, or that Bao had another model that was cancelled. The deal didn't include the part about Nano not taking any new model clients we had talked about before, but I was okay with leaving it as I was told it was. Like I said in my apology, regarding the exclusivity deal made between them, I had no part in the direct negotiations of their eventual agreement, and I had no knowledge of Bao and Cotton being included in this list. If I had known my friends were included, I would have said something to put a stop to it. I was only aware of it being about one person who I was unfairly pursuing. There is nothing tangible I can show to prove that I didn't know what happened between them. I can't prove I didn't know something. Red, I didn't tell Sinder everything because I knew she disagreed with me about Bao, and she'd get pissed. I was confident she wouldn't find out about it, though, with how all of the business discussions with Nano were through me, and even if she did later, then it would already be long done. Sinder wouldn't have told Bao about it after the fact either. I was stubborn and wanted to get back at the kind of person I thought Bao was, more than keeping Sinder's feelings in mind. I didn't mention Cotton's name to Sinder either, since I didn't know how she'd react, and I didn't want her to find out about Bao. She only agreed to Silver, so that's all I told her. January 15, 2025, shortly after the deal was made with Nano and he told me about it, Red messaged artist number 1 about our thoughts and their agreement. Red, when I said there's a few people we compete with that we'd rather withhold your work from if agreeable, I was thinking of giving them the same names I had given to Nano. They had told me recently that they started working with Bao and they worked with Silver in the past. Cinder and I didn't talk about any names to give to artist number 1. Red, because Silver didn't like Cinder, I had something against Bao now. I considered Bao and Silverveil competition. Artist number 1 didn't know either of our thoughts on Silverveil or Bao, unlike what I told Nano. I didn't bother to bring up Khan's name since she never interacted with artist number 1. This was the third of 4 total times with 3 different artists I'd ever specifically asked anyone to not work with someone else, which are all presented in this document. January 16, 2025, the next day, artist number 1 sent Red a document that laid out everything in their agreement. Red, artist number 1 sent a written agreement to go over. As far as I remember, there was a carve-out for both Silver and Bao, and I didn't push for this to be changed. Regardless of what I said the night before, they were their clients already and left things open to work with them. I had them posted in our project server to discuss it there and where Cinder could see it herself. This agreement with artist number 1 never actually happened due to other reasons that delayed us finalizing things. February 10th, 2025 to February 20th, 2025. Nano canceled the exclusivity deal she made with Red about a month after it was made so she could work with Silver. This conversation with Red wasn't included at all in Nano's document, only my DMs with her. Nano faced no repercussions from either of us for going back on her word. Red, Nano, I don't really care about Bao and Cotton. Nano couldn't keep her word on the deal she agreed to because Silverveil asked her for a commission. Silver lost no work with Nano. Just like in November of 2023, Silver was the tipping point for her, so I don't know why she agreed to our deal to begin with. Nano still had no problem sharing with me exactly what she was doing for Silver over a week later. I never got confirmation from Nano that she canceled Bao's model a second time before or after she walked back our agreement, and I never asked. I had mostly moved on from my volatile feelings towards Bao, and I no longer considered her competition. Even if I didn't have a favorable opinion of her, she was still Cinder's friend. February 11, 2025. Nano messaged me the next day about her walking back in the deal she made with Red. He had already talked with me about her canceling the agreement specifically to work with Silver on something. She didn't mention Bao or Cotton at all to me, and Silver didn't lose out on any opportunity with Nano due to this deal. Nano got tired of hearing about Silverveil and didn't want to be involved in any issues regarding her, but didn't say anything about keeping her out of drama to Red. She faced no backlash from Red or I from going back on her word, even though I was upset because this was my last resort to try ending the comparisons between Silver and I. I was content with Nano working on what she wanted to do too, and didn't hold it against her like always. Quote about this from my apology. When Nano messaged me about this agreement almost a month later, I was under the assumption that this was only about Silvervale. I was upset, and my initial messages to her were very guilt-trippy, but I wasn't going to force Nano to do anything she wasn't okay with, and tried reassuring her that I was okay with her decision. Searching Bao and Cotton in my own DMs with Nano. March 28, 2025. Last messages with Bao. These are the last messages in my DMs with Bao. Being a bad friend, compromising with Red, and Boss Rush's role. After our argument in December, Red and I didn't talk about Bao again until sometime after my Heaven Hound debut. He pressured me not to interact with her professionally anymore. I wasn't going to agree to that, but I didn't want this to cause problems between us at home. Bao was a friend that lived across the country. I only ever saw her every few months and already didn't do things often with. I lived with Red, so I chose to do enough just to keep the peace, finding a middle ground between us. I didn't plan anything with Bao one-on-one, which we already rarely did. I didn't raid her in the times I was able, and I didn't retweet artwork of us two together on my NSFW Twitter account. Red didn't want to include Bao in anything Boss Rush related either, including collabs. Red, it was wrong of me to push my feelings about Cinder's friends onto her and expect her to essentially cut her off. Initially in December, I didn't want Cinder the brand to interact with Bao's at all. I didn't want Bao to be included in anything Boss Rush related either because I thought their music video was the motivation to make Sacco exclusive. I took what I thought happened as Bao acting against all three of the girls, not just Cinder. After my deal with Nano, I considered us even, and by the time Nano walked her deal back, I didn't care to find out if Bao's model was still cancelled. I wasn't angry at Bao anymore, just soured on her. I eased up on my feelings towards her with Cinder as months went by, but the way things had been was the way they stayed. I was eventually open to the idea of a 6-person Boss Rush song with all of Cinder's friends, including Bao. It was in group activities with her and our friends that I still interacted with and collabed with Bao like always. I was one of the 6 of us that often took the initiative and tried planning things for all of us to do together. December 27, 2024. I didn't talk to Bao outside of her friends' group chat unless she messaged me first, but the same was already true for her before my disagreement with Red, and for almost all my other friends for a long time, like I explained in the accountability section of this document. Besides our group chat, the exception to that was with Boss Rush. Since Boss Rush's inception in March 2024, I've gotten to be much closer with friends with Tricky and Vienna than with other friends. After our first song premiered at the end of November, I chose to focus on doing more together with them. It was much easier to plan things between the 3 of us rather than all 6 of us because of everyone's conflicting schedules and other things they may have had going on. Boss Rush felt like our version of Bao, Numi, and Shiley's Bikini Bottoms group, making music, collabing together, and doing our own thing outside of plans with everyone. Because of this, Red and I felt like Yuzu was left out. He had the idea early on that we'd like to eventually bring Yuzu into Boss Rush, so she would be included in something too. This idea came before he ever had anything against Bao. These are all Red's messages in our Boss Rush group chat, where he talked about the idea of Yuzu and a song we'd make with her. The first 2 messages are cropped because they're part of a long string of DMs that aren't relevant. July 11th, 2024, July 16th, 2024, December 15th, 2024, and January 26th, 2025. When we would be looking for a 4th person for our Boss Rush collabs this year, Red would suggest Yuzu. Her being involved alongside Boss Rush would have led up to her being introduced in a new song. It'd be a hint to the fans the same way the frequent collabs between Tricky, Vienna, and I throughout last year were intended to be before Boss Rush debuted. But when I was cancelled, we still hadn't talked to Yuzu about joining Boss Rush or doing a song with us. There was only one collab between us 4, specifically in January, but I did end up playing through Split Fiction with Yuzu in March too. There were 5 Boss Rush collabs and 5 Girly Pop collabs that included Bao since the start of 2025 and before April. In March, Bao asked me and our friends in our group chat about doing a group song together for the end of 2025 in December. I turned her down, but I would have been willing to do one next year. It wasn't because of Red, and it wasn't because I didn't want to. I had 6 to 7 music projects already lined up for this year, with one of the most important being Boss Rush's song with Yuzu projected for December already. I know it doesn't mean much without all the details of what they are or who they were supposed to be with, but this was my music release schedule for this year when Bao asked. June 2025, I cover a song for my 3rd anniversary. August 2025, Boss Rush's 2nd song. September 2025, an original song produced by Numi. October 2025, an original song I was asked to be a part of by a creator I looked up to. October 2025, Boss Rush's 3rd song. December 2025, Boss Rush's 4th song, which was planned to include Yuzu. Sometime in 2025, a cover song I was asked to do with another friend. The Boss Rush projects in August and December were planned to be much bigger endeavors, similar to the first song's launch. Boss Rush's song for October might have been pushed to 2026 to have more time for December song, and that's why my focus was on. That's what my focus was on. I didn't want Boss Rush's December release to conflict with the project Bao wanted to do together. I know the time investment needed to put music projects together and how difficult it is to get myself to record my own vocals sometimes. I didn't want to sacrifice the plans I already had for this year and commit to another song. Even Numi said no to Bao at first because of her own schedule. I was removed from this chat when the documents were posted, so I don't have any screenshots of anything from it. With how much more I was doing and planning with mine and Bao's other friends within our same friend group, and because of how I was neglecting her, Bao felt isolated, also evident from her tweets in March. We still did things together as a big group, even though I chose to turn down the group song, and Numi never seemed to have a problem with a few of us doing things separately. But I understand how Bao must have felt. I wasn't including Bao in any of my own things, and when our friends had free time, it went towards our plans together without her. Numi said Bao confided in her about me and the way she thought I felt about her, but never did Bao try talking to me directly about how she felt, the same way I didn't talk to her about Red's feelings. I was neglectful of Bao in my friendship with her, and ignorant of how the things I did and did without her were making her feel. I stayed quiet and gave in to Red, hoping he would move on over time, never knowing what he did and said behind my back. I was an awful friend to Bao for months when she didn't deserve it. April 26, 2025. Bao posted her document just 6 minutes after Nano posted hers at 1:48 a.m. EST. She had already removed Red and I as friends on Discord and blocked us both on Twitter. December 27, 2024. This is a message I sent to another close friend at the end of December. Ironically, I didn't have healthy communication with my friends. I couldn't open up to them or talk to them about difficult subjects. I never spoke to Bao about anything that was going on. In the next section, I go over how my lack of communication hurt Numi too. Okay. Blah 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 blah. Okay. That's it for the Bao section. Okay, I will say this was my worst work. I'm sorry for all the stuttering and all of the pronunciation issues, but I'm gonna say this: when you're reading something for an hour straight, when you're talking for an hour straight, your mouth tends to slur. Just putting it out there. But anyway, that's it. That's the Bao section of Cinder's 1,000-page Google Doc. So, the reason why I'm doing this is because I've seen too many content creators dismiss Cinder's Google Doc or cherry-pick certain things in Cinder's Google Doc and push the narrative that was presented in April, earlier this year. 2025. And I feel that's unfair. So, I'm doing this because I believe it is only fair as fans of Cinder to sit down and read this document and just take a moment to digest all this information that Cinder dropped. And I also just wanted to provide like a pseudo audiobook, I guess you could say, for people that don't want to read it, because Lord knows there are people out there that just don't want to read it. Feel free to read it or listen to it. I know that Cinder's back; she's doing well, and my plan for based on the videos I made regarding the Cinder situation is that once I finish the Cinder Google Doc, I'm just gonna put this down, and I'll move on with whatever I want to do. So there is that. My progress on this is now at 80%. I have to do Silver Veils section, and then I have to read the breakdown section, and then I'll be donezo. Well, and then I have something else, and then I'll be donezo with this. But if you want to support Cinder, a link to her card will be in the description below. In the card will be our YouTube, Twitch, socials, and I think there's a merch store in there. And if you go to gamersubs.com, don't forget to use code Cinder on checkout to save 10% off your order. If that still exists. But yeah, there's that. And I'm gonna address the elephant in the room. I know someone's gonna ask that, but I do know that Bao. I've been hearing rumors and I've seen clips of Bao, I guess, addressing the Cinder doc. Don't quote me on that. This is new information to me as of this recording. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I just cover Cinder Doc, and I'm done. Just to, respect the wishes of people. So, Cinder's wishes of just, dropping it and moving forward. I mean, I will say this, if people want to, talk to me about it, I'm totally down for it. I'll just try and keep it on the DL if I continue this, the down low. Because, yeah. But I'm totally down if people want to talk about it. Just reach out, I guess. Crazy stuff. But anyway, with that being said, everything I use in the video will be in the description below. I encourage you, the viewer, to go to the source so that way you yourself can come to your own independent conclusion. I read for an hour.